Welcome back. In this video, we're going to make the platter for our slump mold design. You should have already finished your Sgraffito platter planning sheet, and you should have finished and created your cartoon design on the separate sheet of paper that we talked about in the first video. Once you've got those two completed, you're going to come over to the slab roller and you're going to use the slab roller to create this slab for your slump mold platter. Okay, so getting started, this here is our slab roller in ceramics. So you're going to need a sizable chunk of clay. I've already wedged this up. And you're going to need one of your slump mold platters, whether you choose the big one or the small one is up to you. The small one is required. The big one is enrichment if you'd like to, challenge yourself. Okay? I suggest that you have one of the canvas workboards to remove your clay from the slab roller after you're done with it. All right, so on our slab roller, we have two things. We've got this underlying blanket here, which your clay will get squished onto, and we've got the overlying blanket here, which goes on top of your clay. So take your chunk of clay. You can throw it at the bed of the slab roller here, just to try to get it a little bit thinner, so it's not so super thick as it goes through the slab roller. This is the same technique that I showed you when we made our coil vases for the floor of the coil vase. You're just going to throw a kind of uneven slab like that. You want to have the longer side of it facing parallel with the roller here so that you can get a wide slab, and then you don't have this really long, thin, narrow slab down the middle, but you have a wider slab to start with, and that width will carry on down the slab roller. Okay, once you get your slab kind of thrown out and a little bit thinner and it's not so thick, take this top blanket and it goes over the top of all that, and it should go all the way down to the other end of the slab roller. Then this huge steel roller here will crush anything that goes underneath it, such as your fingers or your iPhone or whatever else that's underneath it. So make sure that this area is completely free of anything. All right, once you're ready to go, there's this big wheel on the side. You're simply going to turn it counterclockwise, and that's going to roll the wheel forward. You want to roll the wheel forward at a nice even rate so that it squishes the clay evenly. Once you pass your clay, so right now I've just rolled past my clay. It's kind of like the edge of it's hiding right behind this roller. Once you pass your clay, then turn it clockwise and roll it back over your clay again. Roll the roller all the way back to the start position on this end, and then pull this top blanket up and over and just kind of leave it piled right on the end of the roller here. Okay, at the end of the slab roller, I've got the water bottles here, and you're going to want to, before you leave the slab roller, you're going to want to compress your slab. Okay, just like you made our slabs when we hand built them, you've stretched all that clay out, and all that clay needs to be compressed together again or it will crack. So you want to use a fettling knife or one of the metal ribs and compress the clay in the long direction first, and then compress the clay perpendicular to the first direction that you've pulled. Okay, so that side of my clay is now compressed. Then take your canvas workboard, lay it on your slab, and I'm actually going to trim my slab down. It's a little bit longer than expected. So I'm going to use my slab board there and just remove that little bit. Now, the reason why I have this blanket underneath, you just tuck the blanket over the top, slide your hand underneath this blanket here, lift up, flip it over onto your canvas workboard and remove it. And now you can take this easily back to your seat, and somebody else can come in and use the slab roller. I'm obviously going to keep working here because I've got the video set up, but you're going to take this clay, once it's all compressed, back to your work spot at your table so that the next person can start on their slab rolling. Okay, so I'm just going to compress this clay real quick. You want to compress both sides. If you like that canvas texture, that's fine. You can take the canvas and kind of squish it back into the surface to get that texture. But you know, most of the time for our sgraffito design, you want the sgraffito design to stand out rather than the canvas texture. Okay, so you've got your slab that's been rolled out and compressed on both sides. Then you're going to take your platter, you're just going to lift this clay up gently, slide it underneath, so you're using the upside down version of your mold. Then take both hands and just kind of gently squish the clay down onto that bisqueware mold. And you'll be able to feel where it is. So I've just kind of gently drew a little line, and you can kind of see that in the video. Now I'm going to take my fettling knife and I'm just going to trim away, leaving myself approximately 1/2 inch to 1 inch of leeway around my mold. Now if I pick this up, you can kind of see underneath how I've left myself a little leeway. If you want to use that for like an extra handle or something, you totally can, but this is where you're going to take your fettling knife and just vertically you're going to slide your fettling knife in until you hit the bisqueware. And then turn it and gently pull down. And that clay should release itself from the bisqueware. Okay? Notice I've got my left hand, my non-dominant hand, holding the platter, and I've got my right hand, my dominant hand, cutting away the excess clay. Okay? I'm just going to cut the rest of this away, and this leftover clay can easily go right into the pug bucket because it's still wet, it's still malleable, and we can save it in the pug bucket. Now that I've gone around once and kind of removed the most of my clay, you can see the edges are still a little grungy, so I'm just going to take my knife and angle it and just scrape kind of in a downward fashion like this to even and smooth those edges before we take it off the platter. Okay? Now, this clay is still super wet. If I take it off now, this platter is just going to bend back into a slab. So I don't want to take it off the slab mold, the platter mold, until it's leather hard. So it's important that you leave it on that mold until it's leather hard. Otherwise, it will just flop back into an unshapely, unformed slab. Okay? So now you've got your slab mold or your slab over that drape mold. Now you're going to make some feet for it. Remember I said you're not allowed to just take a lump of clay like this and just plop it on for a foot. We're not making those kind of feet. That is so like first project, right? So you've got this lovely slab that you've rolled out right here waiting for you. Left over from your working. It's already compressed, it's already like right there. You could take this slab, you could just cut a long strip off of it, roll it around and make like a platter stand. Like this. Right? You could get a little bit more creative and you could cut out some shapes. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make some little triangular feet for it. So I'm just going to cut one thin strip here, just to raise my platter up approximately 1 inch, 1.5 inches. I'm going to cut some little triangles. Actually, they're going to be trapezoids, sorry. I'm not having a point on the top of them. And I'm just going to attach these 3 kind of at equal distances like that. Okay, so I'm going to grab some slip. I'm going to score and slip them. And this clay is very wet, so my scoring and my slipping doesn't need to be excessive. But just like when you built with slabs for your slab box, you're probably going to want to put a very thin securing coil next to these feet, depending on what style of foot you make, so that they don't come off. Just like I said in class, you can throw a foot on the wheel and then take it off and attach it. You could hand build some other shapes. You could use this slab. You could use a coil version. The only thing you're not allowed to do is just use a little lame little blob of clay and chunk it on for the feet. I want you to think decoratively. I want you to think and make this interesting, not just a little like lame thing. You've learned so much in ceramics, one, in the sense of making designs and making things look nice, that I expect you to use some of that knowledge and make things really look nice. Okay, so here's my feet. Secure it on. Going to use a couple extra little pieces of clay to secure these feet on. And this clay is so wet, I almost don't need to score and slip it, but just since that's good practice, I'll pretend. And I'm going to score right here at the edge. Can we see that? Yeah. Score right here at the edge. It's already kind of slippy from having squished the slip out of the feet. I'm just going to take this teeny little coil, add it in, and just like we talked about when we made handles, I'm just going to smooth that coil in and work it into the clay. Okay? Now, you're going to do that around every edge of your feet. Make it look nice and tidy. Okay, so that when you're done, it's nice and even looking. So I'll come back in just one of the speed videos and kind of work all this up and get it ready to go for the next video. Okay, thanks for joining me. How to use the slab roller, drape it over your mold, and create your feet.